Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Gemini and death, and I'm going to talk about a general outlook, attitude on it. Certain ways Gemini may have propensity in terms of dying. The thing is, first I want to say it does apply and pertain to the Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. First thing I want to talk about is Gemini as far as their general outlook on death. Well, Gemini is very animated, very spirited. They generally, being a positive masculine sign, they generally not the ones to be overly morose or morbid or contemplate these kind of things and matters with death. But the thing about them is if they find out like somebody has died or they're in a perilous situation where they succumb to some kind of cancer and it's been discovered, may potentially be perilous. This could be Gemini being very high strung and excitable. They can obviously respond in a very excited manner, unlike Taurus, who Taurus is, I was talking about the other videos, very impassive and stolid, and they're not ones that generally will show an overabundance of any kind of animation or emotion when something like this would go down. The thing is, Gemini is also very contradictory, so they might have varying thoughts and viewpoints on matters pertaining to death, like such as if there's life after death, or what is the life after death, if any. This is because Gemini is open to many viewpoints. They're very adaptable, also very mercurial, and they'll change their thoughts on these matters very quickly and in many instances. But Gemini is also very verbose, and they'll often speak very eloquently on these matters as well. And they just in very loquaciously as well. Sometimes Gemini could talk one's ear off on virtually any subject, and this would certainly be no exception. And anyway, what I want to talk about next, as far as the physical issues, you could call them anatomical correspondences with Gemini, and they could be these could be areas of the body where they may be susceptible to passing. Which would play a role, which would at least, which could be the, as far as a reason why they may pass and could be potentially perilous. Now, the lungs, I mean, Gemini, of course, could be very susceptible to issues with the lungs and like lung cancer, uh, pneumonia, or some kind of, or emphysema. Gemini could also have they're susceptible to issues with the respiratory system, respiratory failure. Renowned actor Gregory Peck, who had passed away, I think, in 2003, had Gemini rising. He died of some form of what was considered, according to Wikipedia, pneumonia subtype. It was something that was associated with pneumonia and the lungs. It was it was something like broncho pneumonia, and it was something which was associated again with the lungs and pneumonia. And the lungs can correspond with the zodiac sign Gemini. Gemini is often very vulnerable to issues with pneumonia. They have a strong susceptibility to that. And also too, remember that Gemini also rules the hands, the arms, the shoulders. If Gemini gets bone cancer, they may be very susceptible to it in the arms, and that could be another way where Gemini may pass on as a result. This could also be anyway. And the thing is to and also remember that the central Gemini corresponds with the central nervous system as well, so they could be vulnerable to diseases associated with the central nervous system now, and disorders that are connected with that. Now, in a solar or natal chart for Gemini, the zodiac sign Capricorn often falls on the 8th house cusp. And the thing about it is, Gemini, as I was stating before, is very spirited, very animated, can be very vivacious in their nature. And some kind of issue with death could make them more despondent and melancholy than the average person, given that the zodiac sign Capricorn often falls on the 8th house cusp in a solar natal chart for Gemini. But I do believe too there it also can reflect or represent issues that are associated with the zodiac sign Capricorn as a possible death. It could be like getting bone cancer. Capricorn corresponds with the bones and the skin as well. Skin cancer can be another issue that Gemini may have to combat, which could be potentially perilous. I don't know if all skin cancer leads to one's death, but I'm sure there are, some, at least in some instances, it can. Melanoma, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Melanoma is a form of skin cancer. And another thing too, and I know this is not like really directly attributed to any death, but some kind of knee deterioration or degeneration could happen maybe near the time when Gemini does pass on. And I don't know, see, Gemini is known to be very mobile, very restless, and I don't know how this works or not, but if you're somebody, I'm thinking if somebody is doing a lot of walking and a lot of moving around, and even during that latter part of their time on Earth, could it lead to something where you can wind up maybe taking its toll on the knees, because that is part of your walking. And I'm just thinking maybe that has something to do with it. But anyway, now in a solar natal chart for Gemini, the zodiac sign Virgo often falls on the fourth house cusp. And the thing about Gemini is that, I mean, fourth house astrology can be associated with burials. This could be something for Gemini where they might have a very frugal burial, the way it's set up. Gemini may also exhibit certain, like Virgo-like characteristics at the time that latter part of life that's leading up to death. Now, I know Leo, I'm talking about as far as Placidus house system goes, that Leo often falls on the fourth house cusp in a solar natal chart for Gemini as well. I've known a number of Gemini rising people that have had Leo on the cusp of the fourth house. So it could also indicate with Leo on the fourth house cusp, the situation could be rather loud, boisterous. It could be where Gemini might be more domineering toward that end, that latter part of life, will want to be that focal point of their home, their dominant person. But going back to Virgo being often on the fourth house cusp in the solar natal chart for Gemini, I don't think this would exclude Virgo-related debilitations at that end part of life, like the pancreas, something with the upper intestines, the spleen, ruptured spleen. These could be issues that Gemini may have to contend with at that latter part of life. But again, going back to Leo, often being on the fourth house cusp for Gemini in the Gemini solar natal chart, there also may be some issues with the spine or the heart at this time of that end or latter part of one's life, which may be tied into one's passing. Now, another thing, next thing I want to talk about is the zodiac sign Scorpio often falls on the sixth house cusp in a solar or natal chart for Gemini. Now, this could manifest a number of ways. You're talking about Scorpio is associated with the colon, the bladder, the prostate. Gemini may be vulnerable to some kind of colon or bladder cancer. It's a health debilitation or prostate cancer, which of course can lead to one's passing. Now, another thing, what I wanted to I thought was interesting, one example I'm thinking of, as far as Scorpio being on the sixth house cusp and one's passing. Now, he didn't die, but he may have come close to it. Some of you may have remembered someone named John Wayne Bobbitt. And he was in an infamous situation where he apparently had raped, according to some blogs or something I saw, that he raped his wife. And the wife, in an act of vengeance, had cut off his private sector. And the thing about it is John Wayne Bobbitt, he has Gemini rising, and he has Scorpio on the sixth house cusp. And of course, Scorpio corresponds with the pelvic area, the private sector in one's body. Now, if he never got that private part back, so to speak, I'm thinking he could have potentially had died. So even though this is a very bizarre, unusual example, I think it still applies. And I thought was interesting too, if I remember right, his south node was also near that sixth house cusp, and it's also south node astrology can be about what we're going away from, and you're talking about that was a removal of that private part, so to speak. And he also had the south node at least in a loose conjunction to his natal Mars in his chart, and Mars can be associated with the sexual organs, and it was in Scorpio. So this was done, that removal was done with vengeful, vindictive energy by his wife, because Scorpio can be vengeful and vindictive. Hold on a moment, people. And ironically enough, if I'm not mistaken, his wife is a Scorpio sun. Or I'm sure it's probably ex-wife now, but anyway. Well, the next thing I want to talk about, last but not least, as far as putting things to death, figuratively speaking. Well, Gemini may have no problem in that, because Gemini is not one to hold malice or animosity toward people. They're not vengeful, vindictive people. Now, they might do something to get you back right away after you scorn them, but they're not ones generally to hold on to a protracted or prolonged grudge against a person. This could also, the thing about Gemini too is, and I'm not stereotyping or not, all Geminis by any means, but Gemini in a negative manifestation may go from person to person, and without much of an afterthought in doing so. And Gemini will often, Gemini would often use somebody, and then when they're done, with their thrill with that one particular person or getting what they wanted, they may go on to the next person. And the thing about, and it's also, it might not even always be a material thing or money. It could be something where Gemini gets their thrill. They have their enjoyment with that one person, and if something with that person, if the situation becomes somewhat monotonous or mundane or tedious, whether it could be a person or it could be a general situation, it could be where they're living, they may move on unexpectedly. You might not hear from them again, because the thing about Gemini is that their need for variety and activity will often surpass and take precedence over the feelings of others. And the thing about it is, and there's also, again, a lot of it has to do with their need for their excitement, to have things enjoyable. They don't want things to become stale, and if most things start to happen, that's when you might find Gemini moving on. So really, that's basically what I wanted to get at as far as that goes. And anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard, stay well.